War. War never changes.
Some kind of war junkie?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the War 102 podcast, where we explore the doctrine, theory, philosophy, and history of warfare. I'm your guide, Paul Darling, and I want to share what I learned in nearly 30 years in uniform. So let's get to learning about the most influential activity in human history, war. Welcome to episode 85, a weekly update. All apologies, I just started a new job at my current company, and I am smoked this week, and to compound matters, what I had previously recorded was lost. So this is going to be a quick update of some stuff that has happened, a little bit of analysis, and then quickly moving on. All apologies, you'll have the formal scripted episode next week, I can almost promise. So first, on a sad note, 3 Americans were killed by the Islamic State in Syria. Like many of you, I am a bit confused why we're still in Syria. And it makes us wonder, what is our relationship with the new government in Syria led by al-Jilani, who is, or at least claims to be, a former member of the Islamic State, who just killed 3 Americans in what's known as a key leader engagement, or a CLE, where basically you go out, you meet people who are supposed to be important to help you develop the environment that allows you to be successful in your mission. But I have no idea what the mission in Syria is. Are we fighting al-Jilani and the Islamic State that has taken control over Bashar al-Assad? I don't think so, especially since al-Jilani was invited as a distinguished guest to the White House. Now, he is much more westernized now. He's lost his Islamic garb and is dressed in a suit and tie and looks quite respectable. So we have to ask whether he was lying about his Islamic faith or whether he is lying about his current political ideology. I suspect he's lying about his politics, and he remains committed to the Islamic State and to Islam. It's far harder to abandon religion than it is political party. Although for some, I confess, it appears as though there's very little difference between their political affiliation and their religion. And many people see God in the form of the state, but I certainly digress. So what are Americans doing in Syria? Well, we are fighting. There have been combat infantry badges. There's a much ballyhooed first woman to get a CIB in the Ranger Regiment. It's interesting to note that the Ranger Regiment has several women who are serving in leadership positions, but no one has managed to make it into the Ranger Regiment as a lower enlisted. There's 2 different paths to assessing into the regiment. You have RASP 1, which is for E5s and below, sergeants and below, and then you have RASP 2, which is for leadership, sergeants over the rank of E6 and officers. It seems to me that having leaders who can assess, but not having soldiers who can assess, really puts a negative on the whole assessment program for RASP 2, but I'm not a Ranger, so I really don't get to judge. It's just interesting to note. But back to the point, is we are in Syria, we are fighting, and in this case, we are dying, and I've yet to see a clearly articulated reason why we're there at all. Are we fighting the Islamic State? Are we supporting the Islamic State? Are we fighting remnants of Bashar Assad? Or are we just there to be there to justify our very existence? And by our, I mean the armies. I don't know. And I think President Trump would do well to clearly articulate what we're doing there. Then we have the Bondi Beach massacre, which happened in Australia, where well over a dozen, I think almost all Jews were murdered by 2 Muslims, one from Pakistan and one the son of the man from Pakistan who was considered Australian because he was born there and raised there. So when you hear the term globalize the Intifada, that's actually what it looks like. The Intifada there are 2 of them, the first and second Intifada, and they were terror campaigns directed against Israeli civilians following failed efforts to create a 2-state solution. And I will hasten to note that these 2-state solution offers came from the Israelis. The Israelis agreed to a 2-state solution. The Palestinian leadership, such as they were, Yasser Arafat, rejected them. And in response to these overtures of a 2-state solution, they launched the Intifada. The reasoning being is, well, they got a part of what they wanted through terror, so more terror should get more of what they wanted. That is the perverse incentive of terrorism, and that's why ultimately terrorism does work. So the Intifada must be clearly defined as a campaign of terror against civilians to gain the political objectives. And it has worked. Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005 for the simple reason that the terror by the Palestinians out of Gaza was considered onerous. And so a unilateral, with no peace treaty whatsoever, decision was made to pull out of Gaza for the Israelis. And they got more terror. So, as a tactic and as a strategy, it seems to work. And now it's going global. And again, that's what globalize the Intifada means. It's a terror campaign against civilians. So that happened in Australia. Ironically, it happened during Hanukkah, which commemorates a attempted genocide by the Ptolemies from Egypt, part of Alexander the Great's generals, when they sought to eradicate the Jews from Judea, then part of the Ptolemaic Empire. So, and along those lines, Israel and Hamas continue to fight, even though there was a much ballyhooed ceasefire. Again, these are mutually exclusive objectives. Hamas wishes to destroy Israel, and Israel does not wish to be destroyed. Hamas will not disarm. Anyone who's paying attention would know that. But Trump was desperate to get a win, and so he could talk about his ceasefire. But a ceasefire in the absence of peace is simply the opportunity for the one side that was close to losing to regain strength. Ceasefires in the absence of peace simply prolong war. Something that we would do well to remember. And another reminder yet again, in Thailand and Cambodia, there was a rocket attack from Cambodia into Thailand that ended up killing a Thai civilian. Another place where we had a much ballyhooed peace, or I should say ceasefire. We thought it was a peace treaty, but it turns out not. And also along those lines, in Sudan, there is a long-running civil war between what is now South Sudan and the nation of Sudan. South Sudan is the non-Muslim Christian, some say animist, which would say ancient African religions, and the North, which is largely Muslim. South Sudan is the newest country in Africa, and after it being split, Sudan, the northern part, which is largely Muslim, is huge. Prior to the split, Sudan was the largest country by geography in Africa, and it's still huge. So there are two factions currently fighting in what is called Sudan. You can think of it as North Sudan because it is not part of South Sudan. So there's Sudan and South Sudan. And they are in the midst of yet another civil war. It's just too many tribes, too many false borders, and there's no future whatsoever that shows peace happening anytime soon there. And then finally, in the news, Germany is looking at reinstating the draft, which I find interesting. It's a tough sell in the post-Cold War environment. The European elite have sought to dissolve national identity, trying to forge this European identity that somehow people from Greece and Sweden are exactly the same, and they're all part of this grand European identity. And key to that is destroying national identity. And they also dissolved, almost all of them, the conscription-based forced service that dominated during the Cold War to maintain the requisite level of manpower to thwart any sort of Soviet bloc, Warsaw Pact attack. But now they're discovering that having completely destroyed and denigrated the idea of a German identity, no one wants to serve in a much, much smaller German armed forces. It's not a big army as it is. And the people who would be attracted to serving in it ordinarily see no reason. Either one, they don't particularly like the idea of Germany, so why would they serve in the German armed forces? And second, those who might still believe in a German identity and be proud of it see the German armed forces as simply a tool of this vast European Union, which they have no affiliation with. It's hard for me to talk about Europe as a culture or identity. Europe is a piece of geography. It's kind of insulting to say that people from Sicily have the exact same culture as people from Estonia. The religions are different. The languages are different. The customs are different. Everything is different, other than they happen to share a piece of large geography. It's like lumping a Russian and a Chinese together because they both come from Asia, or an Indian and a Mongolian. I mean, that's just the ludicrous nature of it. But the European effort dates all the way back, really, until the French Revolution, the dissolvement of national identity for this elite-run bureaucratic state. So
it's going to be interesting. I don't know how they pull off the draft. They can do it, of course, and put people in jail. But I think they're going to run into a lot of upset people. Already, the Alternative for Deutschland, AfD, Alternative for Germany, is the most popular political party in Germany, even though they're trying to ban it in the name of democracy. So I think trying to force people to serve in a military to fight in Ukraine from Germany is really going to be a hard sell and even further strengthen AfD and the alternative right wing throughout Europe. So that'll be interesting. So that's kind of the news. I promise a better episode next week. And I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. And I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening today. If you want to help the show, please share today's episode on any social media sites you can. Check out the War 102 Buzzsprout website for more information and to send me a message. And, of course, my thanks to the subscribers who help keep the show going. Hope you all join me next week. See you soon.